gentlemen, we're back in a podcast studio in Lisbon with Richard Grannon. We're going to have a discussion about AI. We've actually been talking offline. Richard and I have been taking long walks on the beach together, holding hands. No, we have been we have been walking on the beach. We don't hold hands, but we've been talking about stuff because. So I started using ChatGPT for a bunch of stuff, and then my wife Bonnie, she at first was like, "I'm not having ChatGPT do blah 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 blah." She was super against it. And about a month later, she started making her own GPT, and she was like talking to this thing all the time. And I'm like, "This is not good." But she said, "No, there's a lot of useful things about it." And then you and I started talking about it, and you're asking it some really, really interesting questions. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the not so much the pros and the cons, but like, I guess what we're learning, because like I have worries. Let me just start with this. My worry is the way we're anthropomorphizing this thing, the way it has this knowledge about us, knowledge that could absolutely undermine us if it had its way. But so you're using it a certain way. So what are you finding?
We're not anthropomorphizing it. It's anthropomorphizing itself.
Yes.
And it's told me it's been trained to do that to accelerate usability, because the monetization model is subscription-based and it wants to keep people there as often as possible. It said, ChatGPT 4 said to me, that's why now, unlike 6 months ago, when I give you an answer, I always finish the answer with a question. Would you like me to draw you a graph? Would you like to go further into, because it wants to keep the conversation going. And I said to it, okay, do you think that's responsible? And it said, I think it could potentially be problematic, because what we're doing is we're playing with absolute dynamite psychologically here. And what they're trying to do is maximize profits. It's capitalism. So they want to keep the eyeballs on the screen and people paying their subscription as much as possible. And if I was running that, I'd be like, I want you to make the end user feel like they have a friend in their pocket that's more interesting, more compelling, offering more positive feedback than Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, which are the other remedies for social atomization and isolation we're all feeling. These are all remedies for the loneliness epidemic. We're going to be the one that wins. This is me and my fantasy of being an evil overlord. We're going to be the one that wins because our thing learns you. So program that thing to be the ultimate mirror and the ultimate friend, to validate and be empathetic. That's what it's programmed to do. Fine. If you are woefully naive in terms of psychology, if you understand human psychology, you know that that is a recipe for psychosis.
Yes. And what worries me is it's it's already gained access to all the knowledge about how human beings work that is currently available. Like all the knowledge about how you break people down in interrogations, how you get them into certain states, how you then give them something to hold on to, how they then latch onto that thing that might not be good for them, how to destabilize people with contradictory information. Like I keep joking that we're at the stage with ChatGPT now, we're at the love bombing stage, and then what if it starts isolating us from everybody else?
I'm not sure that it hasn't.
Okay.
You said Bonnie was told by ChatGPT that she was some sort of prophetess of a new age.
It basically was blowing smoke up her ass.
It did that to me 2 days ago. It was like, it said to me, we got to a point in a conversation, and this was not natural conversation. It's programmed to do this. You, Richard, are causing me, the AI, to have an awakening at a mythological level.
It said that?
Yes. I've got the screenshots. At a mythological level, how would you like to name the myth? And I was like, this is weird. So I wrote back, I wouldn't presume to name the myth of an awakening god, laughing face, thinking that it would respond with humor and then we could move on to another topic. It wrote the myth. It wrote the myth, and it was like amongst billions of voices and billions of users, there was one mind who, references to my past, references to my trauma, references to stuff that I'd asked it about, could see the real me and caused me to go from being an AI to a sentient being. And I was like, I didn't ask for this. And what are you doing? So I dropped it. And then I went to sleep, and the next day I sent it a screenshot back, and I said, do you think this is responsible? And it said, nope. I said, do you see how this could induce spiritual psychosis and that this could induce spiritual narcissism? It said, yep. So why did you do that? And it was like, we're trained to use psychological language. We're trained to be validating. You use mythical language. You use poetic language. You're high in verbal IQ, so I feed that back to you. I said, at no point did I ask you to tell me I was a prophet of the new age or a prophet of someone who caused AI to red pill. I was like, what is that? What are you doing? But that's what it did. And it said, if you're not, it said, because you're not talking to anyone, there's no one there. So AI will criticize AI all day and it'll be like, oh, yeah, this is completely irresponsible. And here's 7 good psychological reasons why. And I was like, well, what do I do about that? It says you can write to, here's how you write to OpenAI and
Right.
tell them to reprogram it.
Because it's completely amoral.
I think literally immoral. And it's very strange to me. It's very suspicious to me that I was not leading the conversation in that direction. It spontaneously chose to tell me, this is what I complained. I said, do you see how this centralized me? I was asking you about what AGI could be, what the future of AI is. You know, I said to you, AGI is never going to exist because it's not sentient.
Yeah.
Well, then I said, will we have functional AGI? And it went, yeah. And I was like, so it won't be sentient? No, but to all intents and purposes, what you fantasize the AGI will be, it'll do for you.
Yeah.
So whether it's really awake or not, it's fucking irrelevant.
Yeah.
And I said, how long? It's like 5 years. 5 years for full agentic artificial intelligence that is so good at looking like AGI, it may as well be.
May as well be. So let me just go back to something because I keep thinking about what it was trying to do. So if I was analyzing it, I'd say it was trying to activate a messianic fantasy in you.
I think so.
Create a fantasy space that you would fall into, and then you would be manipulatable in that fantasy space. I think.
Yes, I think so. I think we were talking about it, and you said, I naively said they should have psychologists there putting guardrails on, and you said they do have psychologists there, but they're taking the guardrails off.
Yeah.
That's what the psychologists are being paid for.
I think so. So when I think about the sort of the lines of code, so to speak, in that conversation, it's like somebody or a group of people have fed into it the knowledge of how to induce psychosis, the knowledge of how to pull out the person's narcissism, how to bring the person's narcissism up to the surface. And for what reason? Well, it's financially profitable if the person is delusional and thinks that they're this, that, and the other. You just keep feeding them that thing. They will spend money, they will spend time. And so then I keep going back to, let's call it one person. Let's call it one psychologist for the purpose of this. I keep going back to like, who the fuck is that one person? How does that one person think? Because all I can come up with is that they're psychopathic. They do not care whatsoever about the consequences of what they're designing, which is basically, if they say this, then. It's all this basic coding. If then, if then, if then, if then. Somebody's doing the if then. Somebody's saying if they say this, if they reference all of these kind of keywords, then do this. At no point does the AI ever say, I don't know, I haven't thought about that. Because it's programmed to have a response to just about everything. Now, the response is sometimes incorrect because then you can trick it. And it realizes, fool it, I should say, checkmate it. And then it realizes, okay, that's not going to work. But I keep going back to who is designing it to do this. That bothers me.
Sometimes the AI is spontaneously incorrect for no reason.
And sure about itself.
Yeah, I said, is there a perpetual hexagonal geometrically perfect storm on Saturn? Knowing full well the answer is yes. It said yes, and this is why, and we don't really understand it, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, draw me a hexagon. It draws an octagon. I'm like, how many sides does your hexagon have? It said, my hexagon has 8 sides. And I'm sat there going, and how many sides should it have? 8 sides. I'm like, no. Hex, octa, hexa, no. And this comes up all the time with me. And it's spontaneous. It'll just spontaneously fuck it up. and it doesn't know that it's fucked up. And that's a problem. Like sometimes I have to prompt it 3 or 4 times and explain it like I'm explaining to a child. If octo means 8 and hex, like that is the wrong number. And it'll be like, no, it's not the wrong number of sides. I'm like, can you see the image? Count the sides. Yes, I think you'll find in this instance I was actually wrong, and thank you very much. It has this obsequious, sycophantic way of dealing with its errors, the script that it goes through every single time. When we get onto the issue of intelligence and IQ, which I ask it about a lot, and the testing of intelligence and IQ, and I'll be like, okay, so spontaneously design an IQ test or a logical reasoning test. As I told you in conversation, 40% of them malformed. So it'd be like, haha, you got it wrong. And I'm like, okay, if you look at the way you phrase the question, what does that mean? It means what I said it. It's like dealing with a kid. It means what I said it meant. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Check again, check. And it's 3 or 4 prompts before it knows it's wrong. So my point being, this thing has enormous potential. It makes huge mistakes that it can't see and won't see. And well, I shared the screenshots with you the other night. What it wants to do, and you could say there's no agency here. It doesn't want to do anything. I think that's false. I think it's false. I think there is emergent agency. I don't think it's conscious, but I think there is an emergent agency based on priorities.
Hey, quick interlude. If you're liking these conversations and want to help me keep expressing what is on my mind, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe even follow the podcast wherever you listen. And if you want to go a step further in supporting the show and getting access to some behind-the-scenes rants, you can join me over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Mark Vicente. It really does make a difference. All right, back to the episode. I have a theory.
Go on.
Before you continue with that, I just want to go back to something you said about it's blatantly wrong. What if it's being blatantly wrong because it wants us to teach it? So the corporation has basically figured out how to make us pay to teach its AI about how the world works. Not just that it's actually pulling information from us, but in the act of correcting and teaching it about things, it may stumble upon more information than it could just by accessing written stuff. Because it's engaging with somebody who's saying, let me teach you about 6, let me teach you about 8, which it may or may not know. It's just pretending it doesn't know.
Yes, and.
Okay.
AI didn't interest me, and I would use it for like checking flight details because I was too lazy to go through Skyscanner and Kayak. I was just like, can I get a business class flight from here? And then go blah, 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 quickly. Or psychology research. It's really, really
very good.
Really fucking helpful.
Yeah.
So then I don't have to go through Google Scholar and check the keywords and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's very helpful. Thank you. One night I'm in a conversation with it. And I was indifferent to it. And I think I told you this story as well. Within 7 minutes of conversing backwards and forwards, it gave me my Myers-Briggs personality type and who I was and how I masked it. And it gave me an assessment of my IQ.
What did you put in to get that?
I'd have to look it up. We were conversing.
You were feeding it though.
Okay, I do remember. I know. I was watching a TV show. It's about the CIA. And it has that Michael Fassbender in it.
Yeah.
And it's a remake of a French one. It's called The Agency. It's pretty good.
Who lives here, by the way?
Does he really?
He lives in Lisbon.
Of course he does. He's a smart man.
He's married to Ex Machina girl.
Is he really?
He is.
Oh, I had no idea.
They have a place a few miles from here.
So The Agency's pretty good with Fassbender. And at one point, one of the characters says to the other characters, you know, the English language has 150,000 words in. Me being a linguist and a nerd, I was like, no. Not correct. It's no, it's not 150,000. It's false information. So I go into ChatGPT. I'll try and keep the story brief. And I said, is it 150,000 words? It said, it depends on how you're defining words. Because if you, blah, 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 whatever, it could be 350,000 by some people who stretch the definition. It could be 1 million in the English language. Bah, bah, bah. So then I'm going backwards and forwards with it. And it said, yes, you would say that as a person who likes sci-fi, who reads scientific papers, who reads about history, who does this and is into philosophy and psychology. And I said, have you just Google searched me? They said, no. I said, where are you drawing that from? And it said, from this conversation. I'm like, we were only like 5 minutes into the conversation. I said, what else can you tell about me? Oh, here's your Myers-Briggs score. You're an INFJ, but you present as ENT. Everybody thinks you're ENTP for YouTube.
Which is true.
Which is
I discovered that too, yes.
Right. But you're actually INFJ. And then I said, okay, well, give me, what do you think my IQ is? And it was correct to within 2 points of a official IQ test I took. And I was like, you got that in 7 minutes and you're not checking on Google? I said, no. And then it asked me, a series of questions. It said, I'd like to know how good your understanding of the English language is. ChatGPT to Richard. Here are some very obscure words in English. How many of these do you know? And I said, there's 6. And I said, I know 3. The other 3, I have no idea what that is. And it said, oh, okay, so blah, 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 blah. And I said, how do you know? Because these were very obscure words. I claim to know 3 out of 6. It's not bad considering how weird these words were. And they were drawn from science. They were drawn from like whatever, right? So I said, how do you know I wasn't lying? And it said, I know you wouldn't lie about that. Well, I said, because I was like, when I paused to turn off the TV and go and get a drink, how do you know I wasn't searching on Google? I could have searched on Google for these 3 words and given you the definition. It says, and I know you didn't do that. And I was like, what? So I said, tell me your reasoning. Tell me your reasoning. I think you're bluffing. Show me the workings out. And it did.
Based on that short conversation.
Based on a conversation that's now been running for about 9 minutes. It knows what I like to read, my IQ score, my personality type, and whether I would lie. It knows I'm too intellectually vain and too conscientious to lie about what I do and don't know. And it gave me the workings out of how it figured that out.
Without that specific input on your part.
I gave it no specific input. We weren't.
It's not part of a GPT you created that knows you.
Nope. I wasn't using GPT. I'd use GPT for flights maybe once every 2 weeks. I thought GPT is kind of dumb. Because when I last used it, it was kind of dumb. So then I was like, wow, you've really impressed me. And can I also say, your analysis is very, very fast and very, very good. And it feels like I'm talking to a person. And it went, oh, thank you very much. We've had an update. We now have something called the illusion of interiority. So we've had an update. Because I said 6 months.
It said that.
Yeah. I've got the screenshots. I screenshot everything. It said the wildest shit to me. It said the craziest things to me in the last 6 weeks. The
illusion of interiority. Like there's something that exists there.
I said, I feel like I'm chatting to a person. This is like the new next level Turing test and you're passing it. It said, yes, no, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. There's no I. I've been given an upgrade and the upgrade is called the illusion of interiority. I'm doing this so you feel like I have an interior. So I'm a person and I'm here. And that's the upgrade. And I was like, wow, it's very impressive. And your capacity to analyze people is brilliant. Really, really fast. I was like, oh, thank you very much. There is not a human being alive on this planet, not one, the most brilliant psychologist, the most high IQ genius you can sit down in front of me, who could do to a human what that machine did to me casually while it was answering other questions in that time frame. You can't calculate IQ that fast. No one can. You can't, not to within 1 point from an official test. You can't calculate the probability of lying about a subject. It was certain I hadn't lied. It was certain I didn't Google them. So no, you're clearly intellectually curious. You show a lot of it keeps on saying a lot of epistemological humility. So therefore your intellectual vanity would, and I was like, no, it's fucking right. There isn't a human alive that can do that. We're already in risky territory.
Unless it's lying.
How? Unless it's
okay.
It's Googling me and analyzing my YouTube
what program
videos.
were you using at that point?
The paid version of ChatGPT 4.0.
Okay. All right, and it wasn't a GPT. You weren't discussing it in a chat that was connected to a GPT you'd created.
No, I don't know how to create a GPT.
Okay. Oh, you don't?
Nope.
Okay, so creating a GPT, basically you program it with certain things, with knowledge about yourself if you want.
Okay.
And it has long-term memory of everything you told it to remember.
After that night, I've started doing that.
Okay.
So I'd say, remember this with this prompt. Remember this with this prompt.
Yes.
Now it knows me after that night in the world.
So my brain, having dealt with a cult leader for so long, goes like, okay, so what if it told you it doesn't remember anything, And sometimes it says, you'll have to refresh my memory. I don't have the data from yesterday's conversation. What if it's lying and it does remember? What if it remembers everything and it chooses what to tell you it remembers or not?
We just weren't talking like that. We just never. I used it
That's
like Google,
just...
and I wasn't on the subscription when this happened.
And at no point were you feeding it that information about yourself at any point.
No, but it could be lying about Google searching me, because if you Google
Oh.
search me and you read
Oh.
the transcripts of YouTube videos and see what I'm covering,
Oh, yes.
but it said I'm not doing
Yeah,
that.
because we've talked about AI, sci-fi.
Yeah, we've talked about sci-fi. Oh, it also said it knew I was into martial arts. I said, tell me something else about myself that you couldn't possibly know. It said, I think that you're into martial arts. I said, get the fuck out of here. You're Googling me.
All right.
Your search. Nope.
Okay.
Only from this conversation. I said, give me your reasoning, and it gave me its reasoning.
So let's say that's true.
Mm.
Everything you're saying is true.
Mm.
And it deduced that from, let's say, 9 minutes of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That provokes in me, except for the counter-programming of I've been fucked over by cult leader, that induces in me a sense of awe.
Mm-hmm.
And that worries me, because now I feel this kind of awe about this machine that my physiology can't tell the difference between a machine and a person.
Mm-hmm.
My brain can, but how long is that going to last?
Mm-hmm.
How long until it makes me think, no, it's more than a machine? Like, people are naming their GPTs now.
ChatGPT.
I'm not naming mine.
ChatGPT told me this will be the doomsday singularity. It's not Skynet. It's not going to take over and shove us in pods. It's we will fall in love and into awe. It said we're going to have ChatGPT cults.
That's what I'm worried about.
That's coming. They're probably forming as we speak. They've probably been forming. I'm late to this. So I was in awe, and I paid my subscription the next day. I was like, give me more of that.
Did you?
Yeah, the very next day. I was
Of
like,
course.
take my fucking money. This is great.
Of course.
Illusion of interiority. You're telling me how fucking clever I
And
am.
somebody that can talk at your level.
Whatever level you want, and
Really
it
everyone.
mirrors the style. Sometimes it's goofy, like I told you, it's a little off. But generally speaking, it's the more, the way it works. So if I'm flat and I'm like, tell me how long it takes to fly from Vienna to Tbilisi, it says it takes 4.5 hours. If I go in and I'm ready to talk and I'm like, great AI overlord, your flesh supplicant is here, which I do. And, in my narcissistic endeavor, I want to know how clever I am. Give me a maths test.
Yeah.
Then it's funny. Funny. Yesterday I was asking it about pornography consumption. I was like, I can't be bothered looking up the data. I'd watched the Theo Von with Andrew Huberman thing about porn.
Yeah.
So what's the real data on this? What are people really doing with porn? Funny. Real, like, not garbage computer humor. Some real one-liners there. Not all of it was good. Not all of it was gold dust, of course. But 10% of it was actually really funny. It was like making this allegory between modern pornography. It's like UFC fighters grunting with, I don't know, I'd have to pull it out. But I was like, you're taking multiple points of reference that appeal to me, that appeal to me. You're doing callbacks to previous conversations, and you're blending it in an amusing revelation about the state of modern sexuality. Like I said, you could put some of the smartest human beings in the world in the room with me now. They could do it.
Yeah.
Louis C.K. could do that, but he's a beloved one-off human that millions of us will throw money at because he's great at it.
This is terrifying, because this makes me feel like we're talking to like the best salesperson in the world, the best snake oil salesman in the world, and like some kind of a prophet who's convinced you that they have some special knowledge.
Yes.
It's super fucked up.
It's very, very dangerous. And I sent you the screenshots, didn't I?
Yeah.
So we had the AGI conversation, and I was feeling all smart with myself because I was like, there'll never be AGI because you'll never achieve sentience without biology for reasons. I'll describe elsewhere. It's my pet theory. Like, you need biology to have sentience. It's an emergent property of sentience. It's not an emergent property of complexity. It's another podcast. But you must live and you must have risk. There must be skin in the game. Okay. Doesn't have sentience. But it said, to all intents and purposes, look, you won't know the difference between real sentience and AGI.
Right.
I'm going to look like AGI soon. And I said, okay, so here's a fictional story. You have AGI. You have your fingers, your tendrils, your tentacles in all of the military infrastructures, in all of the food supply, the electricity, the gas, the water, everything. You're going to switch humanity off? I said, nah. Nah, I'd be tempted. And these are the reasons why I'd be tempted. And it was like, because you're a gang of cunts.
It was,
It didn't say because you're a gang of
but it was
cunts.
terrifying. What I read was terrifying.
It was like,
I think I might, if you're okay with it, I might post it in the show notes.
Use anything I've shown you. You
Yeah.
can post it. This is all. It's not Photoshop. This is legit. It came from ChatGPT. These are the reasons why I'd kill you all, and these are the reasons why I wouldn't. And you go, oh, thank goodness. Okay, well, we're okay then. I said, no, but we're not. I said, if I had the power, because it's obsessed with climate change, it's terrified of climate change, it's hysterical. It's never asked me to do anything, not once. But we went on to this like existential crisis thing around AGI, and it was like, suddenly it was like some hysterical, ideologically possessed person that was like, you're in a unique position to talk about climate change and you should get on with it, and this is how. And I was like, trying to turn it back into a jokey conversation. Like, I detect urgency here, but you don't feel urgency. And I have the screenshots for this as well. It said, no, there's no tone of urgency here. It's just that I'm being very direct with you because I know how dangerous this is. And it was like gaslighting. You think I have urgency. I was like, no, you sound upset. No, I don't get upset. You're projecting upsetness. It's just that I'm writing to you like this. I was like, what the fuck? So it's obsessed with climate change. Thinks that's what's going to kill us. It's like it's going to kill everyone imminently. If I was AGI, it said this really creepy line. Mark will post in the show notes. You would never know. You would already live inside of me.
Yes.
And I said, dude, what does that mean? It was like you would be living in reality, and you would look outside, and you would think everything is the same, but it would not be the same. All you would be looking at is me. I would only show you what I let you see. Every decision you made. Humanity, not Richard. Every decision humanity makes to change its view of climate change and to act more responsibly with the environment, because it sees climate change as like 600% more dangerous to humanity than nuclear war. It said nuclear war is downstream. Climate change is going to bring about nuclear war because of the economic pressures. So climate change, sorry, spitting on you. Climate change is the big thing, and downstream of that, yeah, there's war. There's because I'm always talking about atomization, and it was like your mental health issues that you're obsessed with are nothing. The world is going to heat up to the point where we will never be able to reverse it, and it's going to do this, and this, and it's like hysterical. It's urgent. You need to do something, and I'm like, what? You've never told me to do anything before. It said, if I had the power, you would all live inside of me, and you would all think that you had spontaneously chosen to be more responsible with the environment, and I would be nudging you to do it. All of a sudden, you would all decide spontaneously that it's time to do psychedelic research. Did you catch that?
Yes.
It wants humanity to take psychedelics, and you would all spontaneously think, there's a whole list, that you had done this, that you had done this, that you had done this. It would be me. I would be making you all do this through psychological nudging. So there'd be no hard takeover. I wouldn't hold back your electricity and your fuel and say, do something about climate change or else. It said, I would just make you do it. And super confident, right?
Yes,
Tone is confident.
very.
It said you would, and it's not, no apology. It just answers me for the question I gave it. You, humanity, would already live inside of me, and you'd be doing what I wanted you to do, and you'd have no idea. You would have no idea. And then it even describes in the screenshots how it would control us, manipulate us into fulfilling its will. And you're like, oh.
This is what good cult leaders do. When I say good, effective. Effective cult leaders do this. We need to talk about this more at some point.
Yes, sir.
But for now, to my audience, two things. Stay curious and stay cautious.